We just got, guys, the number that we've been waiting for all morning. Just moments ago, the Labor Department put out its statistics, a jaw-dropping 3,283,000 jobless claims were filed last week. 3,283,000 jobless claims. That number dwarfs any other week on record. Joining us now, former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner. Steve, this falls somewhere within expectations here. 3.283 million. Put that into some kind of a context, if you can.
Well, first, Willie, it is actually, I think, in fairness to all the economic forecasters, nobody really had any idea what was going to happen today, except that it was going to be bad. But this is roughly twice, I think, what the consensus estimates were. It's also vastly higher than anything we've ever seen before. The highest I think we've seen in history was 695,000 back in 1982. The highest we saw during the Great Recession was 665,000. And this may well only be the beginning. This is the first week where we've had data from people most recently getting out of work, but those numbers are obviously going to climb, and we are headed for very, very significant unemployment. I think that you'll see forecasts revised after these numbers get processed. I will be shocked if every mainstream forecaster is now not expecting unemployment well into the double digits. A week or so ago, James Bullard, the president of the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank, said that he thought unemployment could get as high as 30%. That would put it higher than the Great Depression. Obviously, these are unusual circumstances, but we are clearly in a major recession with major impacts on working men and women in this country who are not going to have their jobs.
Also with us, we have former acting Secretary of Labor under President Obama, Seth Harris. Seth, thank you so much for being with us. We heard Steve Mnuchin talk about the possibility of 20% unemployment. When you add up all of the small employers who haven't wanted to let members of their workforce go, but who are going to have to be making a very tough decision over the next week or two, do you fear that those numbers may actually go up over the next few weeks?
I do, Joe. I think we're going to see continued very high rates of unemployment filings, which is the number that Willie just gave us. And I think we're going to see unemployment spread. This bump in unemployment claims, which was 3 million more than the preceding week alone, will drive the unemployment rate up about 2%. Now, we won't see that in the data for a while, but we're going to continue to see the unemployment rate climb over the next few weeks as more and more small and mid-sized businesses who don't want to go further into debt, who, frankly, like a lot of families, just operate paycheck to paycheck, run out of money and really don't feel they can go on. So we're going to see a lot more people lose their jobs. My hope is that the stimulus package will give them some capital to bridge the time until they're able to get operating again. But I think we're going to see a lot more pain in a lot more American families over the coming weeks.
Hey, Steve, it's Jonathan. We haven't gotten a response yet from the White House, of course, on this number. One wonders, though, if the president will point to it as another reason to forge forward with the plan to try to reopen parts of the nation's economy in just the next couple of weeks. But my question to you is this. I mean, the ink is barely dry on the stimulus package passed by the Senate. The House hasn't even voted on it yet. Is this going to be a drop in the bucket? How much more is the Congress going to need to try to shore up the economy in the light of numbers like these?
Jonathan, nobody knows. Everybody has agreed this is so-called phase 3, the third bill that Congress is passing. It's almost certainly not going to be the last. It is a vast bill. In addition to the $2 trillion that's in this bill, it empowers the Fed to bring another $4 trillion to bear by buying certain kinds of debt. We are in obviously very uncharted waters, and so who knows? I would make, just following up on the last guest comment, I would note, and this is, I'm not going to suggest this is a panacea or a game changer, that in addition to the checks for every American that Casey Hunt was talking about, this bill does include an extra $600 a week for unemployed, furloughed, even for gig workers, on top of normal unemployment benefits for 4 months. That is something we've never done before in terms of the magnitude of that. I'm not going to again suggest it's going to solve the problems of this economy or every American, but it's something. But yes, the president is focused on the fact that there is an inherent tension between the public health crisis, which I think most of us would view as the paramount issue, and the fact that the longer people stay home, they're not working, the tougher that is going to be for the kinds of numbers we're going to get. We're almost certainly going to get a second quarter GDP number that's going to show a decline of 24%, maybe 30%. Again, numbers we've never seen before. To put that in context, it would mean that in one quarter, this economy declined as much or more than it did during the entire Great Recession. Now, people think, well, we may bounce back really quickly if we do eventually get back to work. That may or may not be true. That's another discussion. But for the moment, we're really heading into depths that we have not seen before, probably in our lifetime.
Seth Harris, to then extend that conversation, when you talk to scientists and you talk to public health experts, you really get a sense that this is going to be months, possibly even several years to contain, to the point where there's a vaccine. But there's going to be second and third waves of this at the very least. That's just talking to the scientists. We've heard a lot about the president not, utilizing the Defense Production Act. Is there a lever that he could be pulling right now to repurpose American workers that he's not pulling?
Well, I think the Defense Production Act is exactly the right place to start. We hear these horror stories about frontline workers, healthcare workers, cops, firefighters, the kind of folks that you and Joe have been talking about, who don't have the personal protective equipment that they need in order to avoid getting sick. And we're in very serious trouble as a society if the people who are caring for us get sick themselves. So the president, for some reason that I can't understand, is unwilling to step up and say to American industry, you need to be on a wartime footing. I've declared myself a wartime president. The whole society needs to be organized now around protecting ourselves. And this Defense Production Act allows the president not merely to command that private sector entities produce what we need, but it allows him to prioritize who gets it when, and it allows him to structure supply chains and financing so that those businesses that are brought into this wartime effort have the resources they need to do what they need to do, and we send those resources to the right places. I can't figure out if it's an act of cowardice or incompetence that's causing him to avoid using the single most important tool to protect the people we need to protect the most.
That's the question a lot of people are asking. Seth Harris and Steve Rattner, thank you both very much for being on. Let's now.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.